Greetings. Greetings and good vibes, everybody. This is Erika Christie, and I am the host of Creator Shifts. I have been doing a fair amount of interviews of really amazing artists on this show, but I have been getting a lot of questions coming in about both myself and some of the projects that I've worked on before. And so I am going to start doing a bit of a maybe let's say fireside chat Q&A type of thing. I think for now I'm going to do it every other week as more questions come in, just to give a little bit more of a background on my personal experience. Obviously, I kind of pepper that in a little bit as I'm asking people's questions, but if I bring a guest on and I'm asking them questions, I want to get as much of them in the interview as possible. So I don't do it a lot myself. So I thought maybe it would be fun. So we'll give this a try for a couple sessions and see how it goes. See if everybody likes my answers. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but here we are. All right. So yep, here we go. Let's just jump right in. And let's see what the first question is. Hopefully they're not too scary. All right. What's number one? Which mediums do you most like working in? I work in a lot. I work in a lot of different mediums. And a big part of the Creator Shift podcast is talking to artists who also work in, you could say, multi-mediums, you could say multi-platforms. It's all essentially the same thing, as far as the vernacular goes as to what we're doing. I work a lot in video and film. I do it professionally, do it every single day for my day job. I do a lot of outside projects as well. I also have a theater degree, although I haven't done theater for a number of years. Since I've been in Atlanta for a few years now, I've been doing a lot in the comedy scene. So a lot of filming, directing, producing, editing of comedy projects, which are obviously all done live in a theater. So I'm still a little bit doing my theater stuff, although I would like to get back into a little bit more of like actual like theater play work because I like that so much. On top of that, I do a lot of graphic design, especially things like, pitch decks, one sheeters for people who are like speakers, and then all of my social media content. And I also do social media content for like 4 or 5 different businesses and organizations. So a lot of social content that could be thumbnails for YouTube, that can be quotes, that can be audiograms, that can just be taking photos and doing, interesting things with them. And then, as I said, lots of pitch decks, art Bibles, that sort of thing. I work a little bit in the comic book realm as well. I spent a good number of years kind of learning how to transfer all of my screenwriting skills into the comic book world, because writing for comic books is more different than writing for any of the other mediums. Like, it's really, really shocking. And hold on, my microphone is about to start moving. Hold still. Sorry, I'll try not to use my hands or my microphone will start following me as I'm moving around. I also played music for many, many years. I haven't done it professionally in quite some time, but I do a lot with music. So I like working with musicians. I like filming them. I like making music videos. I like working with them live, setting up audio, doing all that sort of stuff. Try to think, is there a medium I'm forgetting? Podcasts, I work a lot in audio. I've done a little bit with audiobooks. I would like to get more into it. I'm sort of one of those people that always gets commented on, "Oh, you have an interesting voice. Do you do voiceover type stuff?" I've done it a little bit. I wouldn't mind getting more into it. I do enjoy doing it. I actually enjoy doing voiceover stuff more than I like being on camera, but I have to be on camera, so I'll get more used to it, don't worry. Wow, is that all the mediums? I feel like I'm missing some things. Photography, I do a lot. I work a lot as a professional photographer, especially for big events, which I really like doing. Yeah, I think that's it. And the question is, which do I like more? So I sort of missed the point of the question. I like them all. My answer would be I like writing and directing the most. So anytime I can do those two things, and those two things are really valid in pretty much all of those different mediums that I mentioned. So if I can direct and write, I'm happiest doing that. I like working on teams. I like managing teams. Anything that's multidisciplinary makes me really happy. If I get to work on a project where I get to work on with graphic designers and musicians, and filmmakers and the writers, and like anytime I can do all of that, I like that the most. So writing and directing are the two things that I like the most. Okay, let's see what the next question is. Although I sort of kind of answered that one. Maybe I'll get better at answering questions. What's a what's a film or piece of content you wish you had created? That's a lot. There's so many that I could put into this. Uh, I work a lot in science fiction and fantasy, so anytime I see anything in that realm, I'm excited, enamored, and slightly jealous that I didn't get to work on it. I would say as a child, it was, things like Tim Burton. I would say I think I was probably 15 or 16 when I first saw Frankenweenie, which I think I would say had a big, big impact on me. That and Vincent, that sort of style, that whole sort of Tim Burton-esque look to it, really inspired me, and it was like that's definitely where I wanna go. So a lot of my fantasy stuff, a lot of my sci-fi stuff, and just my approach to directing actors and my approach as far as camera work and lighting. Anytime I can do that low key, really dramatic lighting, dramatic scenery, dramatic actors performing, like I love that sort of thing. More recently, I guess my answer, there's a filmmaker, which I should have remembered his name before I started this sentence. Uh, Peter Lindgren. I follow him on Instagram and YouTube, and every time he puts something out, I'm instantly jealous because he's so fantastic. I've seen some of his finished products. I've seen a huge amount of his behind the scenes stuff, and the thing that's so fascinating about him is that he does his behind the scenes stuff in the same way that he films his actual projects. Why are we even talking about this? Let's just go to his YouTube channel, because I tend to follow him a lot on there. So let's just look him up like this. We're going to switch to screen share. All right, here we go. And now let's look up Peter Lindgren, because he's fantastic. And if you don't already follow him, you absolutely should follow him because he's that much fun. Yep, here he is. Here's Peter Lindgren. You can just see from his YouTube thumbnails how just visually stunning all of his stuff is. So it's really good. So here's him in his studio, lots of fun camera stuff. Again, you can see how fun his thumbnails are. This is one of the first videos that I saw, which is a 10-minute behind the scenes on how he did this poker thing, and I was completely enamored the first time I saw it. He really is awesome. So if you don't follow Peter Lindgren, start following him because he's great. Here's him doing, so he does lots of gear reviews, he does unboxing, he does lots of advertisement. Here's another one, this one here, the image that you see with Wild Turkey, another behind the scenes where he does his behind the scenes video in the same vibe of the way that his actual finished. In this case, I believe it was some kind of an advertisement he did for Wild Turkey. But you could just see from this little thumbnail rolling how great this looks. So yeah, I would say, present day, he's the one when I see his work, I'm the most excited about. Anytime I see him do something, I'm like, "Wow, he's amazing." I'm excited, I'm slightly jealous. I wish I did something a little bit more like that, but, that's what it is. Okay, so let's see if we can get back to here. What is the next one? How do you decide which platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, are best for each type of content? Um, most of what I do is made for one of those platforms. So, like, it's actually created from the beginning to be exactly what it's supposed to be. YouTube tends to be a little bit more long form, have a little bit more of a plot. There's a point to it because I'm starting to do a lot of gear reviews, doing some interviews, doing some unboxing, talking about different kind of software. So there's usually kind of an order to it. That seems to work a little bit better on YouTube. For TikTok and Instagram, there's a little bit of an overlap, but TikTok tends to be a little bit faster pace, a little bit funnier. Instagram can be used the same way, but you're also going to see a lot more cat videos, which you certainly see on TikTok, but you see a little bit more of the fluff on Instagram. That's also because Instagram has been around for longer. How do you decide? Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you're doing. And if you have got a new niche, it's something that you're breaking into, I would definitely say TikTok because if there isn't on Instagram, it'd be difficult to come up with something new that nobody else is doing. On TikTok, there's still a little bit of space right now that it's been around for a few years, but there's still some space for you to get in, get some new people listening. So yeah. Yeah, but I mean, they're similar and different all at the same time, which is kind of how that plays out. All right, so what is the next one? What's the what's the last what's the last new thing you've learned or new skill you've pursued? Lovely. That is a question that I ask people when I interview them, and I so appreciate that being turned back at me. Okay, what is the last new thing? Um, I would say probably the most recent thing I sort of jumped into a little bit is ChatGPT and that whole sort of AI writing element. I'm not hugely fond of that sort of thing in the sense that I do firmly believe that it's going to take a lot of creatives' jobs, which I'm not super happy about. But I have been playing around with it a little bit just to have a better idea of what it is, because there's no point in being scared of something if you literally don't know what it is. The biggest benefits I see of it are things like summarizing and creating bullet points. So if you're able to use it for that, you can ask it to summarize articles, ask it to summarize videos. You can type something in and say, "Hey, put this into a sequence of 8 things on a checklist," that sort of thing. I think it's really helpful for that. It's going to be quite some time before it can write good content, at least in my opinion. Like, it's doing that now, but it feels soulless. Like, you can tell that it's just an algorithm. I'm not going to get onto a soapbox. I also don't like the fact that it's referred to as AI. It's not AI, it's generative software. It's not thinking, it's not intelligent. It's just copying other things and spewing information back out. But that's, again, soapbox I don't need to get onto right now. Yeah, I would say that's the most recent thing I've kind of been dabbling in and out of maybe the last 2 months or so to see if one, just so I can understand it a little bit better, and to see if there's a useful way of having it do some of the grunt work, like I said, bullet pointing something. But yeah, I think that's the biggest use I can see for it right now. How do you handle criticism from others? I'm pretty good at that. I've spent enough years putting out content that when someone makes a comment, especially if it's a negative comment, I don't see that as a, "Oh, no, they hate me, they hate my work." If it's a client, I'm not gonna say the client is always right because I don't believe that, but if it's a client and they're paying you, if they say, "Oh, I would like this blue and not green," I'll say I can do that. It might clash a little bit with the blue on the other side, but I can certainly make it blue. So, yeah, in that case, if it's a client, you just have to work with them, and if they like it, and they're happy with it, then just go with it. For something a little bit more personal, like some of my writing, again, I've done this for enough years, especially in grad school, taking a lot of screenwriting classes in grad school. You put something out, you really put your heart into it, and someone, craps all over it, and you kinda have to be like, so I'm at a point where if I know that the person has the knowledge to make the comment that they're making, I will take that in and go, "Oh, they really know a lot about structure or character or dialogue, and they're saying this part is confusing." I'm gonna take that on board and say, "Yep, I understand what you're saying." If it's a person that doesn't have a lot of experience and they're just saying, "Oh, well, I don't like this, and why did that happen?" I'll just smile and nod and say, "Yeah, thank you so much." I'll still take in what they said, but, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna make any changes with it. You just can't, it's a whole, kill your darlings type thing. You can't get so emotionally wrapped up in your work to the point that you can't handle criticism, because I firmly believe everybody can have creative ideas. If I'm on a film set and the lighting person goes, "Oh, hey, I think there's a really funny joke that can be added here," I will absolutely listen to what they have to say. Just because I'm directing something or producing something, I do not like being a dictator. I like hearing everybody's opinions. I like making sure, everything is moving smoothly. And if somebody has a better idea than me, I want to hear it. It's not a shut your mouth, I'm in charge. No, I absolutely want to hear the better ideas. And if someone has an idea and it's a crap idea, one of two things. We'll either say, "That's interesting," is that I don't quite think it'll work, maybe for this reason, or I'll say, "I don't know if that'll work. You know what? It'll take 15 seconds to test that out. Actors, you wanna do it?" And it's like, "Let's just do it." And we'll do it, and 15 seconds later, we'll go, "Oh, that didn't quite work. Thanks for the idea. Anybody else have an idea?" And then we'll move on. But yeah. Yeah, if you let criticism derail you, you're never gonna get anything accomplished. Yeah, I think that's probably how I would look at that. What are the key differences in audience expectations across various storytelling platforms? Audience expectations. Interesting. I think, generally speaking, I mean, audiences, especially on social media, want to be entertained. Like, if you're not entertaining, that's really all that it is. I don't know if it's necessarily platforms that I would say are different. I would say it was probably more the type of video. Like, if you're doing an unboxing video or a gear review video, audiences are expecting one sort of thing. If you're, putting out a video of people doing a silly dance, audiences are expecting a different kind of thing. So I don't know. Yeah, I would say to me, it would be more the content rather than the platform itself. Because if you're listening to an audiobook, you're expecting something different than if you're watching a video, on Instagram on your phone. Yeah, I think it's the content itself less than the platform, although obviously the platforms have their own differences. Yeah, I think that's my answer. Yeah, something like that. How do you balance creative freedom with platform constraints in your storytelling? Interesting. I'm one of those weird people that I like to look at constraints as something that can help you. You hear people talking about making movies or TV shows or putting a band together and you hear like all the things that they had to do to all the things that they had to overcome to get where they were. And most of the time, all those things they had to overcome actually ended up making the end product better. Yes, at the time, they wished they had double the budget. Yes, they wish they had 8 people on the crew instead of 2 people on the crew. Yes, they wish they had better costumes, they had better props, better this, better that. But so often, the constraints that were put on them made them think more creatively, and that, in the end, gave them a really good product. I had a conversation once where I was talking to a painter and, I very clumsily sort of asked this question, and I said, "Do you ever sort of, like, intentionally constrain yourself? Like, do you ever tell yourself, 'Well, I'm gonna make a painting, but I'm only gonna use the colors, green, blue, and yellow?'" And I asked it really clumsily, and the person didn't quite follow what I was saying. And, it kind of flashed me back to being a little kid. I remember the first time, in an art class, I heard the term monochromatic, and I didn't know what that was at the time. But finding out that monochromatic meant, a chrome, color, doing in this case, it was a painting, but doing a piece of artwork in just one color. What that meant was that you could choose the color that you were gonna do your painting in, and then the only other colors you could use, you could add white or you could add black to it to get different shades of that one color, but you could not use any other colors. And I remember how much fun I had on that painting. Being explained what it was, I thought was annoying, but once I found out, like, once the teacher explained, "You can only use this one color," it really made you sit down and think what your painting was gonna be and how you were going to be able to get as much creativity as you could into this painting, knowing you could only use that one color and then darker and lighter shades to kinda help shape it. So I as frustrating as constraints are, again, most constraints are gonna be money, it's gonna be people, it's gonna be time. As frustrating as it is, often, if you can overcome them in a really creative way, your end product is gonna end up being even better than what you thought it was gonna be. Yeah, I think that's probably how I'm gonna answer that. Uh, how do you develop and maintain a unique voice as a writer? Hmm. Uh, m I think most of what I do is pretty weird to begin with. And, I am one of those irritating people, who will correct people's grammar if they use it incorrectly, and I will say that, unique and weird are 2 completely different things, but in my case, uh, being weird as far as my writing goes ends up making my writing unique, so I'm not saying that weird and unique are the same thing. But, yeah, just the weird things that go through my head anyways already kind of make everything weird. As I've said, I'm huge into fantasy and science fiction. I like dark. I like strange. I like also crossing genres. I've got a big multimedia, multi-platform thing going on right now, and I describe it as horror, comedy, science fiction. And I absolutely love that particular conglomeration of those 3 genres, where there are moments where it's very funny, there's moments where it gets a bit into hard sci-fi, and there's a big difference between hard and soft sci-fi, which I'll answer at a different time. So moments where it gets into, like, serious hard sci-fi, and then you'll have moments of just absolute horror. I mean, dismemberment and blood and gore and just horrible things happening, and then it'll jump back into sci-fi, and then it'll suddenly be comedy again. I genuinely love jumping back and forth between all those things. So, yeah, everything I come up with all is already so weird, that I think I've got the unique thing down. Uh, it's really, really strange the amount of times in my life I've had somebody read one of my screenplays, and I normally don't do a top page. The top page, which will have, like, genre and, like, the log line and, like, all that background information, I normally don't give those out. I'll just hand someone either a short script or a long script and be like, "Hey, do you mind just reading this and give me some ideas?" The amount of times, and I would say it's probably approaching a dozen at this point, the amount of times that people the very, very, very first words out of their mouth when they like respond back to me is, "This is supposed to be animated, right?" And my answer is always, "Actually, no, it's live action. It's just weird." So, and I don't particularly like doing things with a lot of CG. I like practical stuff. I like weird costumes, weird backgrounds, weird lighting. So and it caught me off guard probably the first, I'm gonna say the first 4 or 5 times where the very, very first comment back was, "This is animated, right?" And me thinking, How did I write this in such a way that this person just automatically assumes, that what I wrote is supposed to be animated?" It's that weird, it's that strange, it's that unique, it's that out there that they just assume that it has to be animated because you couldn't possibly do this live action. So, yeah, I would say my brain kinda goes in the unique direction anyway, so I don't have to work at that too much. That's just because my brain is broken anyways. So, yeah, I would say I don't have to work at that one too much is pretty much my answer. Um, how do you what? How do you deal with filming outside in the elements? Okay. I should probably just read the questions and not try to anticipate where it's going because I had no idea where that was going. How do you deal with filming outside in the elements? I I could probably answer this question about 15 times. Like, this could come up every single one of these Q&A sessions, and I'm gonna say something different every time. So I've done enough crazy stuff outside in the elements that have no idea how I've gotten through some of them. Uh, I'll jump to I spent quite a number of years working with Marines, Marines as in like US military Marines, veterans, and we were doing stuff on jet skis. And jet skis, meaning which also includes boats. We also had follow vehicles. Uh, it was a big, huge project, and getting to really do a deep dive into, all of my GoPros that had to be waterproof. I had to figure out where to put them, going in and out of marinas, going up and down boat ramps, placing cameras in the right place, figuring out where the jet skis are going, figuring out if there's places to get ahead of the jet skis so that you can film them approaching, then film them going by. But the water, just the element of the water itself was a absolutely mind-blowing thing to try to get used to. Um, and that's not even to mention the fact that we were on the East Coast. We did all of our work between, let's say, like Long Island all the way down to Miami. So up and down the whole East Coast, we did trips in the dead of winter. Like, it would be substantially below zero, and we would be outside on our jet skis so covered up that you could just barely see us because we were so trying to keep the water off of us as much as possible. And again, me still having to deal with the cameras, where to put them, how to keep them charged, how to keep them warm, where to angle them. So working with water in that capacity, if the jet ski is going 60 miles an hour on the water somewhere and you lose a camera, how do you retrieve it? Is there a way to get a flotation device on it? Like, just all these questions. So water itself is insane. The very first time we had the whole team out, because there was a team of like 6 or 7 of us, and whoever was free for that filming would show up. I think the first time we had everybody out there, uh, they were goofing around and dropped one of my microphones into the water. One of them was giving the other one a piggy bank. They were walking up the boat ramp. There was maybe 10 feet of water before you were onto land. They were being goofy. One of them had taken his lapel mic off and was holding it, jumped on the other one's back. He took 2 steps and dropped the microphone right into the water. Fortunately, it was a cheap microphone, not an expensive microphone, but working with water, especially over large masses of water, is absolutely exhausting. I have no idea how we got through. All right, we've been going for almost 30 minutes, so let's do one more right now. And what is the next one? How did you learn comic book writing? Um, YouTube. That would be my best answer. Watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I also took quite a few classes, because I really like learning in that sort of structured, here's how you go through it. So I did a lot of online classes, watched a lot of interviews, people talking about how to do it, have gone to a lot of different like Comic-Con type events in different cities throughout the US, just hearing people talk about their process and just chatting with people. But yeah, in short, I would say YouTube is probably the place where I've learned the most. And I actually think I mentioned earlier, comic book writing, I think is more different than all of the other types of writing. I think writing for audio and writing stage plays and writing, screenplays, I think all of those things are more similar to each other than any of them are to writing comic books. Comic books really are very, very big difference as far as style goes. But you absolutely can transfer your skills, and that's the biggest thing that I was trying to learn, was how to transfer all of my skills. For a comic book, it was dialogue, it was stage directions, and it was being able to give good directions to the artists. And that I actually used my design and my photography background the most, being able to give good directions to the artists so that they could take the panels and really make the most interesting and fascinating panels out of what it was that I was writing. So yeah. That's it for this first session. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. I hope you've had a wonderful time. I've enjoyed answering these questions. There's so many more to get to, and I will be back within the next week or two with more of them. So thank you all so much.